Good afternoon, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Singles Connect community. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week. Today is Sunday. It's a brand new week because the week starts on a Sunday. But if you guys are new to us, go ahead and subscribe, share. If you've been dating us for a while, I encourage you to subscribe too. We come here to learn. We come to chop it up. We come
Yep.
to learn on different topics. And today we have another exciting topic for you guys. And we hope you get to learn something today too, like we're going to learn something about what we're talking about. And today's topic is we're talking about accountability and responsibility in a relationship. And I am just going to be transparent to tell you that I think I lived this out in my life this weekend. That's all I'm going to say. So I learned a lot. So, so yeah. So, Akan, how have you been? Welcome, my co-host. Akan the King is
Yeah.
here. We're missing our third leg. Dr. OJ is not here with us today.
Yeah.
Hopefully she can chime in or join in with us maybe at some point. We're not sure, but if she does, great. If she don't,
Yep.
we will continue the conversation. We will try to continue to share with you guys what our thoughts are, what our perspective is, and then, as I said, go on this learning journey together and just see where everybody is at and where everybody's at in their space. So, Akan, how are you? How was your week, my
I'm
friend?
great. I'm great. It's been good. All glory to God. It's been a wonderful week. It's always a good occasion to be back here. So I'm just glad to be back and for us to talk about things like this. We all know how it is with dating in the world today and how it is where it's gone. So yeah, always a good thing to come back. But yeah, it's been good. Thank you for the week. Looking forward to a new one, and hopefully it's gonna be
Hmm.
great. Yeah.
True, true, true. So, yeah, well, yes, I am looking forward to another week too as well. We're in June, believe it or not, guys. We're in June. The
Hmm.
year is literally flying by. Like I can't believe we're at the 6 month mark of the year. But I am a strong believer that it's never too late to accomplish everything that you want to accomplish, whatever those goals that you set for yourself at the beginning of the year, you can still attack it. You can still brush off that whatever you if you made a list of things, if you wrote it down somewhere and it's collecting dust, or file it away in the back of your mind, wherever it's living in space, you can still utilize it, guys, because that's the space of mind that I'm always constantly in. That it's never too late to start. That's the important thing is starting. So, yeah. Uh, but anyways, let's get to the topic today at hand. So we're talking about accountability and responsibility in a relationship, and we know how important accountability is. I think throughout just your everyday life, it doesn't even have to be about a relationship. Just taking accountability for yourself, who you are as a human being, the life that you choose to live, how you choose to show up in the world, how you choose to carry yourself, the things that you choose to come out of your mouth, the mindset that you choose to have, whether you choose to learn and grow or whether you choose to be stagnant. It's all to me fall under accountability and how you perceive, how you perceive things in your mind and how you view the world. So I think this is a very important topic, and when it comes to responsibility, it's about the responsibility that you have to yourself as well as to the people that is in your life. You first hold yourself accountable, and then you hold yourself responsible for whatever you're holding yourself accountability to or for. Is that because it can be just you yourself, or it can collectively be, whether it's family, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is. So what's your perspective, Akan, based on, I guess, the definition that I am given based on my understanding of what, and then I am going to give you the, I guess, the dictionary definition, but when I think about it and try to put it in my own language and my own terms, that's where my mind goes with that. So what do you think from maybe your own perspective or your own thoughts when you look at the definition of accountability and responsibility when it comes to relationship, and it doesn't matter what genre of relationship that is?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Stacy, well said. But when it comes to both of these words, I would put responsibility first before accountability.
Ah, okay.
Because I feel like with responsibility, it's you have this thing that It's a place where you have to choose what you want to take on. You have
Okay.
to be actually responsible. And then when you're responsible for the things that you've accepted to be responsible for, now that process involves you being accountable for
Okay.
the ongoing things that are going. So I would put responsibility first. For me, that's how I see it, because I think, when it comes to responsibility, responsibility is also a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of the fact that you're born into this life, you're born into this life. You're a child. You grow up and everything. People take care of you, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
the world takes care of you. However it happens. Sometimes some people are born with a silver spoon. Some people are not. But then you can't actually be responsible for yourself at that point, because you can't even choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then you get to a point where you're now like, you've seen a lot of things, you've been exposed, the choices are shown to you based on wherever you've been raised and whatever. And so now you have to choose if you want to become responsible, right? And
Mm.
then that requires you to take accountability. So, and while you're growing up, those who are responsible for you, who have accepted you, they're teaching you how to be accountable for yourself. So then
Mm-hmm.
so now we bring in the context of relationships, especially intimate relationships, and it's like you got to be responsible, which signifies you being responsible for the person you chose, being responsible for knowing that you're gonna this might actually be a go, or it might actually be a fail. It might actually be
Mm-hmm.
good or not. You're responsible for that possible outcome. And
Mm-hmm.
now, in order for you to ensure that this responsibility that you've borne on is going to be something you're going to manage it well, that brings the
Yeah.
accountability part of it in, you know. But I also think that, further, before we go to responsibility and accountability in relationships, first thing that has to happen first is you got to be responsible for yourself.
Uh-huh.
And then, right? And accountable for yourself. So, no brainer. If you are not responsible for yourself, I believe, or accountable in your life, there's a high chance that you're not going to be do the same thing in a relationship with, whether it's friends, family, or even like a partner. So yeah, I'll say
Well,
that.
it's interesting that you say that, and I kind of like the perspective and the direction in which you went with that, because basically what I'm hearing, you know how they say you can't treat someone well if you don't treat yourself well. It's like that. Like if you are not, my aunt, I grew up hearing my aunt, my dear Auntie Vanny, always saying that you need to learn to be nice to yourself. That she always tells us that, like, be nice to yourself. And I
Mm,
think in that was her simple way of telling us that treat yourself well, because if you treat
mm,
yourself well, then you will treat others well, and then others would also take that as an indication to know that, okay, this is the way I need to show up for you, because this is the way you show up for yourself.
mhm,
So with that little nugget that you just gave, that's what came to my mind. That's what you were articulating. That if you can't be responsible for yourself, how are you going to be responsible for anyone else?
yeah.
It first starts with you. And I think through a lot of things, that the first thing, if the first decision, the first action starts with you.
Mhm,
Like, you have to show up for yourself. You have to teach people how to treat you. Like, self love starts with you. You have to figure out how you want to be loved, how you want to be treated, and then do those things for yourself before you start asking someone else to do those things for you.
mm,
So I'm glad the way how you look at it. And I actually have never thought of putting responsibility before
yeah.
accountability, because I was just like they go together, but in
Yeah.
the order in which you put it makes perfect sense. And with that, I'm going to read for you the definition, I guess, according to Google, that they
Mm,
give on it. And basically, what it says is, in relationship, both accountability and responsibility are vital for fostering trust, communication, and growth. Accountability is about owning your actions and their consequences, while responsibility is encompasses of embracing your obligation and commitment. So that's where you were saying
mm,
you first have to decide that I am going to take responsibility, not just for myself, but for whoever else I
yeah.
decide I'm going to take responsibility for. And then he goes on to say, when partners take accountability, they show that they can be relied upon even making mistakes, building trust, and strengthening the relationship. That for me was, when I read that, I was just like, okay.
Mm,
I don't know how any simpler to put it, because really that's what it is. Like, I think in any relationship, whether we're talking romantic, professional, relationship within families, like when you take accountability for your actions, it does show that, okay, you understand what went wrong, even if it's a mistake, even if it's not intentional, and something happened, you take accountability. That's, I may have done something, I may have said something that may have hurt someone,
yeah.
or whatever the situation is, and then you apologize. Like, I think an apology is the most vulnerable thing we can do as human beings,
Mm,
because you are stripping away ego, pride, especially when it's genuine. I'm not talking about the fake apology that sometimes people do just to shut someone up, and
mm,
there's no remorse behind it, there's no sincerity behind it. You're
yeah.
just spilling out words out your mouth just to spill words out your mouth. I'm talking about sincere apology, like heartfelt apology, where you are sorry you hurt someone, you're sorry you did something that makes someone else feel less than, make someone feel lacking, make someone feel unappreciated. Like, I think that's the most vulnerable thing we can do as a human being, because you are, the ego goes down, the pride goes down. You are pretty much putting your feel yourself on the line here, because the person doesn't have to accept it either,
Mhm.
and they don't have to forgive either. But you are putting all of that on the line, that this is a moment where I'm going to stand in transparency and vulnerability, that this person can embarrass me, this person can shame me, this person can shun me, and say, I don't want to see you, I don't want to take it. So when you take accountability for your actions, and then you, that turn into apology, especially if it's in a situation of a mistake, I think those are some of the most vulnerable things that we can do as human beings when it's done sincerely.
Mhm.
So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on when
Yeah.
it comes to the, because I know
Accountability.
you talked on the responsibility part, but what are your thoughts when it comes to the accountability piece of it, taking accountability for whatever that action is, or whatever that,
Mhm.
whatever may have happened, for you to be saying, I take accountability for this moment, or for
Mhm.
this event, or for this mistake, or whatever it is, whatever the situation is.
Yeah, accountability is actually part of the responsibility, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're also choosing to be accountable, and that's actually
Yeah.
being responsible. So, it's part of it. But I think it's important I think a lot of times people go through life, whether it's a relationship with normal people, or even, and then if we're talking about a partner, just like literally just gliding through, not being expectant. I think one of the things that helps you become accountable as a person is to understand and expect that things are going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going to There's an expectancy that things may not, there's an interaction between you and someone else, the environment, and so there's some things that are going to be misinterpreted. There's some things that you're going to go against, that things that people are going to go against you, or the person is going to go against you. And being accountable is being able to note those periods, note those moments, see what happened there, understand if, okay, you're the one in the right or you're the one in the wrong, and seeing if you're the one in the wrong, you make amends for it, and if you're the one in the right, but what happens in that relationship is that at that point in time, you need to save that relationship, or you need to keep that relationship by just creating an understanding and not really just expressing how right you are. That might be
Mm-hmm.
something that you want to do. So I feel like accountability is part of it's part of you taking like that initiative, and then actually looking at the facts of what happened, how did this go on, and you're right about being vulnerable, where you apologize, because then that's when the other elements like humility and just being able to decide, is this relationship more important to me versus my ego, or
Mm-hmm.
versus what I think. I think so. Those are the places where your responsibility again is going to come in, because you accepted this. Like
Yeah.
this is what you said you wanted to, where you wanted to be at, and this is where that notion of like this is not a bed of roses. It's like it's a place where And then let's not even look at a place where, let's not even look at it from a perspective where someone offended you. How about when you have messed up? When you were the one that didn't keep to what you were supposed to do, or when you have betrayed someone, or when you have gone against what's supposed to happen, you have to be able to take accountability for your actions and come back. And then, you're talking about apology. Sometimes it's not the fact that you apologize or you didn't apologize, it's how you apologize. It's how you make that
Yes.
person see that you have understood what you have done. Because a lot of times people just come like, oh, I'm sorry for this, or I'm like, you're sorry for what? Right?
Yes.
So being
Uh-huh.
able to like see what you have done, see it from the person's perspective and their eyes, that's a whole different responsibility, because some people don't want to do that. They just want to apologize and move on. But seeing it from their perspective, then understanding it, internalizing it, and then seeing how this has caused damage or a problem, and then coming out, allowing that to influence your apology,
Mm-hmm.
influence your the way your body language is, influence your voice, influence how you're talking to them, influence where you want to have that apology with them, influence the means that you want to have that apology. Oh no, this is not an apology that I want to get over the phone. This is an apology where probably need to take this person out to lunch, convince them,
Yeah.
even though they're resilient about it, just beg them. Part of it is for me to just plead with them to just come, because I really want to look them in the face to say this, give them the
Mm-hmm.
reasons. So all these things are part of being responsible and accountable, because you are going the mile. Because if you were not
Yeah.
responsible, you didn't need to do it. And children or babies, they can do whatever they want because they're not responsible for anything. Like, when they, like, nobody's like, but as an adult, when you decide to be responsible, sometimes that's going to actually involve pain. Sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
going to actually involve discomfort.
Yeah.
This is going to actually involve stuff you don't want to do. But that's where that accountability and responsibility comes in. You choosing to do this because this is what is necessary to be done. So that's my perspective on accountability. And of course, as we
Mm-hmm.
continue, I'm definitely going to talk, sometimes, because we are here talking about relationships, like
Yeah.
who should be more responsible, or is it the man in the relationship or the woman? But yeah, I just
Oh.
wanted to do that.
Oh wow. Okay. But okay, so I like your perspective on that, and I like where you're going with it. I do though have a thought, because one of the interesting thing that I find when I was reading about this is how it says it foster communication and trust. Now we know how important communication and trust is for any relationship, for it to grow, for it to evolve, for even to get to marriage, and even in the marriage, how important the trust and the communication is. Although to play the devil's advocate a little bit, some people seem to think, and I don't know how true that is, that finance is the main reason why people for divorce or people marriage not working out. And I think over the years it has evolved. I don't Once upon a time I think it used to be finance, but honestly I think is communication. It's a lack of communication, or unrealistic expectation that has not been communicated,
Yeah,
or was communicated but is not met. You know, when they say you overpromise and underdeliver,
yeah,
that's, I think, is the number one cause of marriages breaking down or relationship not lasting. It's not finances, because as men choose all the time women that are not on their level, women choose men all the time that are not on their level, and I don't think what keeps them apart or not being able to grow is that communication piece that they're missing, where they're like two ship passing in the night. And then the breakdown of mutual respect for each other, because then when there's no communication, then you guys stop seeing eye to eye, you stop respecting each other, and then I think it all just go but anyways, but I like the fact that one of the key thing they were talking about was how accountability and responsibility foster communication and trust. And to me, as I said, communication, I think, is the number one thing that is going to keep two people together.
mm,
Being able to talk to each other, being able to be vulnerable with each other, being able to be transparent with each other, good or bad. Whether it makes it give you the warm fuzzy feeling in your tummy, or it makes you want to throw up, but you can go to that person and say, this is what I need, or this is what I don't need. This is what we need to start doing. This is what we should no longer do, and come into some mutual agreement between the both of you, so that way you guys can walk together. As the Bible says, unless the two agree, how can you walk together? And in order for you to come into agreement, something has to be verbalized and something has to be communicated and understand. And guys, and let me emphasize too here, effective communication, because you can say a thing but you didn't effectively communicate what you
Mm.
mean. And let me give you an example of that. Somebody can say, I don't like when you do this, but you never gave any context as to why you don't like when someone does this. So the person may think, oh, it's no big deal, and they continue to do it because they don't understand the ramification of what that does to you. If you effectively say, I don't like when you do this because it triggers me in this way, and this happens when you do that,
Mm.
and or my mind go here, my mind go there, and my heart races, whatever happens, I don't like when you do that because it's a trauma response for me, or it triggers me to react in a certain way. Then to me, that's you effectively communicating to that person why you don't like something and why they shouldn't do it. So the next time they do it, I think they have less of an excuse, because now you gave context. You gave them tools to understand why you shouldn't do this. And if you're still doing something to that person to hurt them, or do that, whatever that habit is, then to me is disregarding that person's feeling. So the communication piece is key, I think. And it does build a trust, because once you guys communicate well and you understand each other and we are all in agreement, then you build trust between each other, that you understand each other. You can trust that person with your vulnerability. You can trust that person with your transparency, that I can hold a safe space within this relationship or that situation. So that's my thoughts. I think I've rambled enough on what the importance, I think, when they brought up communication and trust, how accountability and responsibility plays a key role into those two things. And to me, those are like some key things that keeps a relationship together.
Yeah, communication and trust, definitely those two. When we talk about that, accountability and responsibility is a huge part of it. It's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
what it is, when it comes to communication and trust. And you're talking about the things that is the main. I definitely would rank um, uh, unrealistic expectations as the thing that causes more of a breakup in a relationship or a divorce. But I think before that, I would also say maybe a lack of in responsibility and taking accountability during the choosing process of your partner.
Mm-hmm. Oh, say that again. Let me hear
Yeah.
that nugget again.
So I'm saying a lack of responsibility and
Okay.
accountability during the choosing or vetting process of your partner. I think that's
Oh.
I think that's a bigger thing that we need to look at, because I think that process is usually not given enough attention, it's usually not given enough
Mm-hmm.
effort, it's usually
Mm-hmm.
not given enough time and patience. I think that process a lot of times is just rushed through. Like, people go
Mm-hmm.
through that with people make that choice of choosing a partner with emotions versus, even though the emotions are there, the facts, what are you seeing, what are you doing there? And then that ultimately down the line results in a mismatch,
Mm-hmm.
or problems, or whatever, things that you feel you can solve, but you can never solve them, because sometimes those people are who they are and you're just who you are, and you guys are just not compatible together. And so, but definitely communication and trust requires work. There's what you come with as a person when it comes to communicating and everything, but there's also the fact that you're going to have to put work. Communication, you decide to come to talk to this person, be with this person, you're responsible. Accountability, now you have to put in the work. You have to
Mm-hmm.
understand how you communicated and how it rubs up on this person. You have to understand how the other person communicates, to be able to be there. And so I think with communication, one of the things that is very important too is you're going to require some patience. and you're also going to require giving people or the person a benefit of the doubt, because it is a two-way thing. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times when people communicate based on expectation, there's an impatience to with receiving like required or deserved feedback. And sometimes all you have to do is just be patient with the other person to receive what you told them,
Mm-hmm.
interpret it, and then give back to you. But I think in that, during that process, people get very impatient because they're like, I feel like you should know this already. You should know this already. So I think patience is very important with communication, and it's a huge part of accountability, because how you communicated with the person, and how you allow them to also give you that feedback is important. And if they do give you feedback that you feel like you don't understand, you ask them for clarity. You understand what's really going on, and or you relay your message in a way that they can understand you more, and that reduces that thing, that whole friction and everything. So, yeah, definitely with communication, that's what I would say, in a relationship. Um, that's what I would say about that.
But I like what you also said though, because I think what I was hearing you communicating was you were talking about extending grace.
Yeah,
I know that you said be patient and give things time to, I guess, to play out, and for the other person to receive what it is that you were trying to communicate to them. But I think what that encompass of is grace. You are giving someone grace in order to pick up what it is that you're saying. And it's funny you say that, because it's like the relationship that because we have a horizontal relationship. And I think it's the same thing. Like, okay, how often are we extended grace upon a daily basis?
yeah,
So for us to be walking around thinking that we are the ish, so, and it doesn't smell, so
hmm
we don't need to give anybody grace when we are living by grace and mercy every single day,
yes,
because the Lord knows we mess up every single day. We say things, we think things, we don't do things, or whatever the case may be, every single day. And yet still we're given grace. So
yeah,
should we not sometimes step out of ourselves and maybe take some time to listen after we have communicated something, after we have requested something, after we have asked for something, and allow that person maybe enough time to process what you're asking for, to figure out if they have the capacity to even deliver. Because that's also another thing. What you may be asking for, what you're maybe requiring, or what you may be wanting, not everyone have the capacity to give that.
mhm,
So you're right, that Akan, that these are very key things in the vetting process, or the early stage of dating, that you have to figure out, and
yeah,
you have to give that person a chance to decide if they have the capacity to show up for you in that way, and not being afraid to have that vulnerable conversation too, because I know those are conversation I have, and sometimes I will tell you, sometimes I feel a little bit weird. And I don't know, I say weird because that's how I feel oftentimes, because when I have these conversation with other women that may not think or see the way that I see things, they're like, isn't it too soon to be talking about these things, like, and why are you discussing these things? And in my mind I'm like, but when do you talk about it? So you're
yeah.
trying to tell me that 6 months go by, a year go by, 9 months go by, whatever period of time. And in my mind, I'm like, if the good Lord can give you the ability as human being in his infinite wisdom to produce another whole human being in 9 months, develop tissue, bones, brain, heart, all of this in 9 months, you're trying to tell me
That you,
that the miracle working things that happen in the human body that he has given us the ability to do, you're trying to tell me 2, 3 months, 4 months is too soon to be talking about this, when you can grow a whole nother person and give birth to a whole nother human being in 9 months? That's where my mind go with these things, Akon. I know, as I said, I sound weird and I feel
no,
weird, because
you
when
don't.
people ask me these things, this is what goes in my mind. I'm letting you on the inner works of my thoughts here.
Yeah,
Of sometimes I do feel a little crazy, because I'm like, but when do you talk about this? uh, if you can do this in this time frame and be responsible for this life for another what in America, in the Western world, it said it's 18 years. For God, you're a mother until you die, or a father until you die.
Yeah.
When do you want to talk about these things? Because this is where, to me, the elimination process take place, because it's an opportunity that you're giving this person to figure out, okay, do I is it even this something I want to sign up for? Is this person way ahead of me? Does this person do our thought process align? Do our future align? Because this, where are we go? Because maybe the mindset of this person, I don't match up with this person. In 5 years, I can see where this person mind is going to be, what they want out of life. I don't want that. So I'm good with just sitting on the couch, drinking beer, watching TV. And maybe this person wants to travel. Maybe they want to solve world hunger, something. I don't know. Start business, whatever it is. And I am just not. I don't care about doing any of those things. So again, I'm just asking a con, because you made a valid point. Like, so I'm because I'm gathering from what you say that I think your mind is working like my mind. Like, it's important to talk about these things up front.
Yeah, you have to talk about them.
So why does society make us feel? Well, some of us feel like we are weird or even stupid for wanting to have these conversations. You
well, I'm glad
know,
you mentioned
in the
society.
beginning,
I'm
and
glad you
not
mentioned
wait
society.
until you.
Hmm.
Hmm?
No, I'm saying I'm glad you mentioned
Say that again.
society. I'm glad you mentioned society
Okay.
because one of the issues that we have now is that people are doing things based on what is expected by society, based on what they think everyone thinks they should do, not based on what and where their life is going to, what they want. Because while you were
Mm-hmm.
saying stuff, you said, I want this, and this, I want. So that means you're talking about things that you want. So you're talking
Yeah.
about the destination that you are going to. So it's supposed to be
Right.
the destination that you are going to and the destination that the other person is going to. But people
Mm-hmm.
do based on, oh, but I think that this is how it should be, this is how society should be, and that's a problem. And studies have also shown that a lot of times, especially in the modern world today, that women find it difficult, or women tend to stay along the lines of not putting pressure on the man to define what a relationship is, because
Hmm.
they feel like it's going to take them. And so one of the things that I advocate for is like, when you meet someone, you need to define what a relationship is, which will involve this conversation. What are the lines? Don't get, and I know how it is in the world today. I know the ratio between men, the amount of men and the amount of women, but you have to be bold enough to let people define what a relationship to you and what that means. What does that look like in clear, plain terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not let's see how it goes. Like, yes, you're still gonna be able to see, you're still gonna be able to, experience someone, but it's like, what is the purpose of the relationship?
Yeah.
There's nothing
Right.
wrong with asking for timelines. How
Yeah.
many how many months do you see yourself? Do you see us doing this? I don't know. We know we don't know ourselves. I figure out how many months do you see us doing this before we move to the stage of engagement? How many months do you see us doing this before we get married? Like, because it's like you have to have that purpose, And so it's I think it's super important. These are some of the things in those processes that have to go. But then if you want to look further back and deeper, you can only do those things if you have timelines for yourself, or
Yeah.
if you know exactly where you're going to and what you have want to get done, right? And then you can now talk to the person. But yeah, you definitely need to have those conversations. This is part of being accountable in a
Right.
relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you are saying that, because I often used to feel having these conversations, or when you tell people that you have had these conversations, even if it's 2, 3 months in, and you're like, well, why are you talking about these things? Like, take it easy, or um, why you take life so seriously? Can't you just go with the flow, or be easy breezy? I don't know, but I'm glad that I'm hearing from men. Men are saying that you're not wrong. Although another friend that I met, well, or I should say acquaintance, once told me too that, Stacy, I don't think you're crazy, and I know you keep saying you're weird, And yes, you may be weird because you don't think like everyone else, and that may seem weird because you're an anomaly. But he said nothing is wrong with your fundamental. It really isn't. It's just the people maybe around you that they're off because they're on a different, I guess, wavelength than what you're on. Because I don't. To me, yes, you're still getting to know the person. Yes, you're still building the friendship, you're still building the trust and all those things, but it's also important for you to figure out where people's mind is and how people think, because how are you going to make I once heard a pastor said, you're not marrying who somebody is, you're marrying who they're going to become. And
Mm.
I think how you figure, and that's what's his name from the basement says that, upset the gram, what is his name again, it's that pastor local here in Dallas. His name will come to me, but that's one of the things he's always saying every time
Yeah.
he does his little intro on his podcast. He's always saying that you're not marrying when you get married to someone, you're not marrying who you think you know, or that person, you're marrying who they're going to become. And you have to be prepared that possibly who they're going to become may be someone you may not recognize, or hopefully you guys grow together. But he was saying in having those conversations in your dating process, sometimes give you a glimpse into who that person is going to become. And I think he's onto something. That's just my crazy thought, that I think he's onto something. Because I think if you pay attention enough to what people say, sometimes it really tells you, it gives you a little kind of like an insight on what they think and where they're going. And I'll use an example, realistic example for you. My dad. Yeah, I'm letting you people in my business now. There's some things what I remember at growing up as a kid that my dad used to say, like, "Oh, I can't wait till I have money. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go do that."
Mm.
And yeah, he never paid any mind because like, oh, we grew up poor, whatever it is. People have dreams and all of those type of things, but some of it was a little bit crazy. But you just dismiss it, and then the scary thing happens. You get a little bit more than what you had, and the same things that he used to say that you didn't respect about how somebody else handled it, and you're like, but why you admire that, and why would you do that even if you had money or you get a little bit more? But he
Yeah.
did turn around and do the same things. So you're like, okay, so this, that your image that you're portraying right now really isn't you. But if you listen to conversation in you, I think it's a con that I learned this one from. If you give people enough time to talk, you will figure out who they are. So
Yeah.
it's like, if you listen long enough and you have this conversation and you get to the inner thoughts of how people mind work, it kind of give you an idea or a glimpse or a picture of what your future is going to look like or who they want to become. And I think that's what my friend from Upset the Gram is from the basement. He has two different platforms, but I think that's what he was also trying to communicate when he said it's not the people that you're with that you marry. You're marrying who they're going to become. Now you just have to trust and hope and pray who they become is the person you want, because sometimes that's not, that person is far from the person you are with, because that's what you're so in love with and you're mesmerized by, and you're like, oh, it's going to be a perfect life. But that's not who you are actually. As he tells it, he's been married for 20 some years to his beautiful wife Juliet. You
Mm.
like, that's not, we're marrying who we're going to become, not who we currently are.
And I agree. And I think I think part of being accountable is part of being accountable in a relationship is something that people don't do a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I heard this from the guy who wrote the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene, is being observant. And I think
Mm.
you have to be observant. People are not observant. People, like I said, you just go through the motions. You talked about conversations, great, and
Yeah.
you do give people time to talk, but it has to be a combination of conversations and actions, because some people are very good at conversing and having
Mm-hmm.
these conversations and saying all the right things, but the actions will show you uh, where they're going and what they are. And that's why I don't really believe in that hoping, trusting, and praying. Hoping, trusting, and praying, yes, for things to be good. But when you're dealing with someone, you're going to have to observe to see patterns,
Yes.
because the patterns are going to show you, give you a roadmap as to where this person is tilting towards, or skyrocketing towards. And so observation is very important. Allowing people to speak, allowing them to be themselves and everything. Observing people in different environments, in different situations, how they react. These are the kind of things that teach you. This is part of being accountable, because you have to be accountable for you taking out the time to observe these people. And it doesn't mean you have to look with a micro mirror and everything, but you have to be intentional about observing, because this is serious business. This
Mm-hmm.
is serious business. You're going somewhere. This is not something where you go by. I think sometimes people is like, oh, don't worry, it'll turn out the way by. It's nice. And he's a nice person. He's a nice guy. He's a nice lady. We'll just go see how things go. No, you have to observe. And while you're observing, that's actually going to also make you very accountable for yourself on how you're moving towards certain things. Because when you observe and you see what they react to, you're also going to ask yourself, what did I do that had made her react to this way? Or why did she react in this environment? Did I go out with her and leave her alone in this place, and she now started being with this man? Or did she just go out and start striking conversation with random dudes and stuff? And or something. So you have to observe. Do not be, and this is more for men. I think a lot of men are passive. You can't be passive. You can't be passive. You have to be observant about who you're with and understand it. And observation is also in the positive light, because when you're observant, now you also know how to cater to someone. You know what they like. You know
Mm-hmm.
what to plan for them. You know how to plan your lives together, because you've observed this is the type of person they like. Oh, this is the type of person in this environment. They don't like this. They don't like that. And so I think that's very important. So I would say conversation and actions should, you know, this that should give you like the idea of, if this is what this person is saying by their actions, is it showing are they showing what they said they would do? And that goes to your story that you just told me about. The actions will eventually show you. But
Yeah.
like I said, no matter how much a person has mastered, like through time, they're gonna start to act out some of the things on what they feel and how they see things and what works for them. And so I think that's very important when it comes to accountability, in relationships.
What about listening? Because I think too, you said having conversation, but observing the action that goes with the conversation.
Hmm.
But I also think listening too, because as you say, and observing, because observing will teach you
Hmm.
what, I guess, how to show up for that person. If you're observing or paying attention to things, then you can actually cater to who that person is versus just doing the norm or doing the just doing the bare minimum of things. But if you are paying attention and you kind of, I guess, speak to that person's heart or that person's soul or whoever they are,
Yeah.
because you're paying attention to the things they care about, the things they like, the things that they do, then you can better, I think, reciprocate that love. But what about listening too? Because I think listening is also key. Like you and I can be having a conversation about anything. But what I'm really trying to communicate to you, I may not be saying, but I am saying, if that makes sense. And I think that's where the art of listening comes in.
I think you're going to
Or
be.
is
I think
am
you're
I
hardly going to be able to. I think you're hardly going to be able to observe if you don't listen. Because
ah
yeah, you're hardly going to be able to observe if you don't listen. So in order for you to
mhm,
actually take proper observation, you have to be able to listen. Because when you are all over yourself and you're always talking, it's impossible. You're going to get in the way of yourself.
mhm,
So observing is listening. And so when you're listening to somebody, you're actually observing their body language. You're seeing their gesticulations. You're seeing how they feel. You're seeing their pitch of their voice. You're seeing how they behave when they walked into a room. So you're listening. When they say
mhm,
something, you're attentive.
mhm,
So you're gonna hardly, if you're always the one who's like always trying to talk, always trying to let them know, even if you know things, if you're always trying to direct, oh no, you need to do this. Sometimes you just need to keep quiet and listen,
Mm-hmm.
and observe. So listening is definitely a key part of it. A key part of,
Okay.
yeah, of accountability. You have to be able to, because you have to be able to comport yourself to listen. Sometimes some of
Mm-hmm.
us, we just want to say things that are out there. We just want our word to be the last word. We want our word to be the loudest words and whatever. But sometimes that's not what it is. Sometimes you just have to listen. Sometimes the person, so when you listen, you're able to observe that, okay, this is how it is. So I definitely agree. Listening is definitely one of those things that is important in relationship. And I think that also goes along there with patience, because you have to be patient to be able to listen,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you're patient, you're able to listen, allow them to finish, even though you have a point that you want to strike. You listen.
Okay. So the patience, I think, tie into what you were talking about before about that giving people time also to process. I guess that piece about extending grace. I did want to mention to you guys, for those of you that are just joining in, again, welcome to the Singles Connect community. Our topic that we're discussing today is accountability and responsibility in a relationship. If you're new to us, subscribe, drop a comment, let us know what you think. If you've been dating us for a while, stop dating us, just decide to get married to us, and just subscribe, share, and like, and comment. Um, and we have given a lot of nuggets in between because I think we've been talking now for maybe almost an hour. But I did want to go over some of the resolutions that goes with accountability and relation and responsibility in a relationship, and some of those things that they have mentioned, like resolving conflict. They have that, well, it's why are those things important, which is the accountability and the responsibility in a relationship. So some of the benefits and the reason why it is important in a relationship, I'm going to go with the first one: building trust. And then we have resolving conflicts. We have fostering open communication, promoting personal growth, creating a more fulfilling relationship. So those are like some of the key things and benefits of accountability and responsibility in taking accountability in relationship, and also taking responsibility in a relationship. And to one of the nugget that Akan dropped in the first part of our discussion, if you missed it, is that he highly recommend that we put responsibility before accountability. And I tend to agree. Like, you have to be responsible for yourself first before you can be responsible for anyone else. And then you have to take accountability before yourself. And before you can take accountability to the thing that you've done, you now make a decision that you're going to be responsible for. So I think the order in which he explained it and the order in which his mind processed it, actually, I think, is a very brilliant way to look at it, because my brain had processed it the other way. But when he gave it perspective, it actually made sense. So again, as I said, in us having conversation here, you learn something. We learn from each other, and we hope you guys is learning along with us, and let us know if you are and what you think about what we're discussing. But what do you think, Akan? I know we are probably getting ready to wrap up, but before we go, what's your perspective on some of those key components that they're saying? These are the professionals here that are saying the importance of responsibility and accountability in a relationship, that it foster these things. Like, these are some of the main benefits that you get out of it, which to me are phenomenal benefits. Like, who wouldn't want any of these type of benefits?
Well, those benefits they mentioned are definitely needed, but should I say that, in every relationship, um, we have to understand that in every relationship there has to be leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership is important, whether I like it or not, and leadership is where the higher level of the person who leads the relationship has a higher level of responsibility and
Question:
accountability.
does it matter if, I know you're a traditional man, so you're probably going to tell me absolutely it matters. Does it matter who leads the relationship in your perspective?
I believe it does,
Okay.
because whoever leads the relationship is going to decide ultimately where that relationship goes. and whoever is leading that relationship possesses certain qualities naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if a man is leading a relationship, we know that as men, because people always say men are logical, men and women both have emotional sides and their logical sides.
Mm-hmm.
But we have testosterone, women have, you know,
Estrogen.
estrogen. So naturally, our logical side is higher than our emotional side, while a
Right.
woman's emotional being is higher. Doesn't mean she doesn't have the other side, the masculine energy that's there, but that's higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah, because you guys possess a little bit of estrogen and we possess a little bit
yeah,
of
we do, so
yeah,
so
we
as far as
both,
the
yeah, right.
yeah, so and we all know that being highly emotional is more unstable. I don't mean this
Yeah.
in a bad way, but emotions, they swing. They don't just stay
They're
on
not
one.
true
Yeah,
because your emotion can
yeah,
oftentimes
they're moving up and down,
betray
but
you. Yeah, as my
right,
pastor
but
like to say.
yeah, but when you're logical, you're dealing more with the facts and
Mm-hmm.
what is around, what is the outcome, what is the action, what is it. It's more mathematical. Um, so I feel like it does matter, and I think that in the relationship, the man should lead, and the man should be more highly responsible, more highly accountable for the actions for himself, and the woman, he cannot be totally responsible for two people. So that's where the woman also has to be responsible and accountable as well. But I think like a lot of the bulk of what's going on in a relationship, the man should be able to be the one to lead that. Um, that's in my opinion. You know,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I don't disagree. I just wanted to hear your perspective. Like, if you had what you thought, like, it doesn't matter who leads, but I don't disagree. I do know that I have heard, though, the other day on the same topic about the lead, the role in the relationship where this wait, what was his name? He was saying that if a woman is a good leader and she's good at that, that it's not even if she wants to tend to maybe lead a little bit in the relationship, he doesn't think it take away from a masculine man or a man that wants to lead in a relationship once there's mutual respect between the two, because he just like the point you gave about one person may be good at something else than the other person. So that was the perspective that he was coming from, it where it was like he's tired of men beating down and women that has leadership qualities or that are leaders. And he said those women are not incapable of becoming wise. You just have to find the right partner that can work with the skill set that she has, and it doesn't take away from him leading in the relationship or take away anything away from his masculinity. It's just about them having mutual respect and understanding for each other and where they're trying to go in the relationship. So that was his perspective. So that's why I wanted to hear what you
But
had
I
to
but I
say.
agree with him. I agree with that perspective because you just because I said someone takes more responsibility doesn't mean the other person is. In order for
Hmm.
you to be able to, because if you're with someone, you're still going to have to lead in the home, whether it's your children, the man, and then just like what he
Yeah,
said, that it doesn't mean there's going to be areas where the man actually needs her to lead because she has
yeah,
more experience in those areas, right? It doesn't put down, where it is, but ultimately, that boat of that relationship is sailing somewhere, and the
yeah,
man must set that course. It's
yeah.
like going with your co-pilot, your co-captain, and you're the captain
Hmm.
of the ship.
Yeah.
You ultimately have to set the course. Doesn't mean that sometimes the co-captain does not have actually more responsibilities. They're probably the one
Yeah.
that making sure that
Oh,
everything. Yeah, it
no,
doesn't
that's
mean.
a good perspective. You're
Yeah,
right.
doesn't
You're
mean the
absolutely
co-captain is probably the
right.
one making sure that all the little nicks and crannies, the compass, this is working, whatever. And the
You,
captain at that point, the captain is just probably just sleeping, whatever, or he's just
Ohan,
like,
it's
yeah.
wait a minute. You just make something pop into my head right now. I'll probably explain it to you more in details offline.
Yeah.
But it's the same way in corporate America where that you get the position of the supervisor, but you actually do more work than your
Yeah.
boss.
Hmm.
Somebody just called me their supervisor the other day. And now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
when you just mentioned that whole co-pilot situation, I'm just like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Does that mean, oh, sorry, does that mean I have more responsibility than you do? Because
Yeah,
oftentimes the supervisor does more work than the boss.
yeah,
Not that not that the boss is not doing work. It's just that most time they come up with the plan,
yeah,
or not even maybe the plan, but they just paint the vision, and then it's up to you to execute the vision and to figure out how we're going to get there. But this is the vision and this is the plan. Now here you go with the blueprint. You figure out how we're going to get there and how this is actually going to play out.
yeah. Because the boss, or whoever he's working with the vision, he sees the big picture.
Yes.
He sees how,
Yes.
but his life might actually still depend on you. You see what I'm saying? This is why
Yes.
great wives to husband, like my life might actually depend on my wife, because she knows
Hmm.
that in as much as I'm a good man, whatever, like she needs to look out for me,
Yeah.
to be able to, even though I'm looking out for her on a bigger level, but sometimes it might actually mean that she's going to do more work than I do, than I'm doing.
Hmm.
You see what I
Yeah,
mean?
I didn't.
But in the
Yeah.
areas where there's some areas where she's going to need me, where even though she's doing this work, I'm gonna have to cover her for that. So
Oh, exactly.
your boss cannot come
Exactly.
and make an excuse for you and say he's not giving, like, this person is doing this stuff. You're gonna have to give them bonuses. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to promote them. You're gonna
Yeah.
have to give them their flowers. You're gonna have to appreciate them.
Hmm.
You're gonna have to know that, let them understand that you understand their importance in this relationship, and you're gonna have to show that by your actions and how you're moving around. You're going to have to take time out of your busy day or your schedule to just say, "Hey, listen, I just want to thank you for being this person and for who you are, and I see how and everything." So that's what it is. But ultimately, that in itself is leadership, because you're also learning to bring yourself down, to be able to calm down, observe who's with you, and moderate, regulate, and also allow people to feel like they're important,
Hmm.
because they are. And so that's just how it is. So I know sometimes when people hear the leadership is like, no, you want to be the one that says, no, it doesn't mean the man wants to say everything every time. You might be leading a couple of times, a lot of times that you might be even doing more work. But ultimately, that man covers, I think, I believe the man should be able to cover that woman emotionally when it comes to vulnerability, a lot of things, you know, if she needs counsel, and needs to be warm, needs to be kept, needs to have a direction, just in a lot of things that are important for you to show the direction that this relationship is going to. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, guys, again, if you're just joining us, I think this has been an amazing conversation. It has been very enlightening. It has been very educational. It has, I mean, I can't tell you the many nuggets that has been dropped in. We like to bring down things to the practical way, things too. And that's pretty much what Akan just did. If you're new to listening to us and listening, being a part of our family, practicalization is a part of what we try to do too. So you guys can relate it to your everyday life. You can actually see yourself in these scenarios, in these different situations, is to not to bombard you guys with a lot of quotes or a lot of facts. So yes, facts are facts, and you can't deny facts. That's one thing you can argue with is with facts, but we also like to give you practical tools so you can look at it in your everyday life too, and that's exactly what Akan just did. So again, guys, I think our time is well spent. We were discussing, and I'm going to throw it around in the proper way, the way Akan laid it out, because it actually makes more sense. Responsibility and
Yep.
accountability in a relationship, because you
Yes.
first have to take responsibility
First.
first
Huh?
before you can be accountable for the things that you're taking
Yep.
accountability for. So guys, thank you once again for joining us. Thank you once again for chiming in with us. Leave us your comments. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like, and let us know what you think. I have learned so much. Thank you, my co-host, for joining, for coming to be a part of this conversation with us one more time on the Singles Connect community. I thank you for your brain. I thank you for your insight. I thank you for your wisdom and everything that you just shared, because, yeah, my cup is full and run it over. I don't know about you guys, but with that being said, we are out, and we will see you on another episode on another next week. Akan, do you have any other closing words before I we get out of here?
Well, I mean, you said it all. It's like just know that I am for anyone who's listening. In every relationship, being responsible, making that choice, and being accountable are just things that you can't get away from. These are the main things
Mhm.
that will get you moving. And, that's going to involve you knowing what your role is, what you need to do, how you need to do that. And so I think everything we talked about has covered that. And you just need to, lock in, and, put in, be observant, do what you need to do, be responsible for yourself first, and be accountable, and do that with your partner, and it should be fine. But Stacey, I think you said everything that needs to be said. I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to doing this again next week. By God's grace.
Okay, and in that words, amen and amen. And we will see you guys next week on another episode of the Singles Connect community. Drop us a comment, guys. Let us know what you think. Your feedback
Absolutely.
is really important to us. That is how we know if we're on the right track or what we need to change or what we need to work on. So again, we'll catch you guys next week. Have a fantastic week, guys. We'll see you and we're out.